As we saw in the last lesson, the password change view currently redirects to a page that Django cannot find. So we need to go ahead and take control of all of the auth views, replacing the current URL config. After that, we're going to go ahead and we're going to make it so that instead of redirecting to a page after we have changed our password, we will send the user to an account view where they have the ability to make whatever changes they need, including changing passwords, and simply show a message letting them know that their password has been changed successfully. So let's jump right into it. You can see I've opened up the root URL configuration under config urls.py, and I am no longer importing Django's URLs. I'm instead including for auth user URLs. Now this was not a module that we had before, right? So this is a brand new module, and I have that open in my second Vim buffer over here. You can see for your benefit, I've included a couple links to documentation that you may find useful as you move through some of this code. And I've gone ahead and I've imported views from Django contrib auth. Now, we are going to come back to the reset password views that we previously had access to when we were coming through the Django contrib auth URLs. But for the moment, because we have only tests for login, logout, and password changes, we're just going to stick to the functionality that we're testing. Of course, I'm also then going to go ahead and import path and reverse lazy from URLs because we need them to create our URL patterns. Now, speaking of URL patterns, we have the login and logout, which is works exactly the way we previously had it, because all of that behavior that we modified is via templates and via settings, so we don't need to do anything special. But now in password change, we're going to pull in password change, and we have to override success URL. Right? This was the problem that we saw at the end, where it was looking for password change done, and we instead wanted to go and look for auth : password change done. So that is now fixed, and we expect that that would work if we go and run the tests. And if you were actually following TDD here, rather than watch me step through this, you would be expected to. I would hope that you would go ahead and do that. But we're just going to keep moving through right here, and you can see we've gone ahead and had a password change done. This is what Django sort of expects that we are going to redirect to, as we are doing up here, and making sure that that goes and works for us nicely there. Now, one of the central problems we have right now is that we have these views and no way to access them. We want to create some page where the user will be able to show up and manage their account. Maybe eventually it's where they can upload photos of themselves for like their profile. Maybe it's where they change their email, change whatever details they have within the account. For the moment, however, we are simply going to use that page to provide a link that allows them to change their password. So to be able to do that, I have gone ahead and moved into the future. And I'm simply going to reload this page, and you can see that the only thing that has changed, right, we have login, logout, password change, all of that. I've simply pulled in the template view, and I've gone ahead and created a template view, and I've said, well, I'm going to go and create an account at user account, and all of that template does is simply redirect to the password, so we're not going to take a look at it. What I do want to draw your attention to is this new import. We haven't seen this before. This is from auth. It's a decorator that you can apply to views, and it does exactly what you think it does given its name, login required. So if an unauthenticated user tries to access this, they are going to be redirected to the login page. The way this decorator finds it is via the settings. So in the last few lessons, we went ahead and we added the login URL setting, and that is what this decorator is going to redirect an anonymous user to in the event they try and access this URL path. So this is a nice quick way of making sure that existing users have the ability to get there. And then of course what we can do is we can add a link to this account in our base HTML page in the event that a user is logged in. And I believe that I have done this in this commit, but you know what? Let's go and find out. And so sure enough, here you can see that if the user is authenticated, we are simply going to provide a link that allows them to go and manage their account. So that's the first step. We now have the ability to direct users to a set of views that allows for password changing. And if we go ahead and run our tests, we should now see everything working as desired. Hooray. Now, our next step is going to be to go ahead and ensure that instead of showing a password change done view, simply saying, yes, congratulations, your password is changed, we want to redirect after the password has been changed to this account view, and we simply want to put a message into using the message framework into the view. Simply display a little message that says, yes, you have successfully changed your password. Now, to be able to do that, we have to subclass the password change view. Unlike with user login and user logout, the auth-contrib module does not actually issue any signals when you change your password. So we're going to have to go ahead and program our own view to be able to do that. So of course, what we're going to do is first move into the future. And then over in this tab, what I'm going to do is I'm going to access within the user view. And now you can see that I have pulled in a whole host of things. The first is that I've pulled in this view, and I've renamed it from password change view to base password change view. And we are going to call our own view password change view so that we know that that is exactly what that is. I am, as before, pulling in success from messages, so we can pull messages, and our favorite reverse lazy. Now, I am also going to be creating a success message mixin. If you go and you look at ccbv.co.uk, you will see that anything that inherits from form view has a form valid method, and that this is called in the event that the form is successfully submitted. As it turns out, password change view, provided by contrib auth, uses form view. And several of the other views that we're going to be subclassing in the next couple of videos do the same. So by creating this mixin that upon successful validation of the form and successful submission will be called, at which point we will show a message, and we can then use an instance variable to be able to customize that message. So you can see me using that down here. We're not going to change anything else, right? We simply inherit from base password change view as well as this mixin, and we make sure that the success message that we have is password changed successfully, and we also take the liberty of setting the success URL here and simply calling reverse lazy for auth account right here. Now this means that we get to simplify our URLs a little bit. So we're no longer pulling in password change or password change done from contrib auth. We are instead simply pulling in password change from our views, and we are not going to be redirecting from password change done, so we don't need it at all. And so down here, we're simply then calling this as view using the same name. Now, usually I like to have a separate URL config for password or making this a slash instead of password underscore. But for the sake of following what Django does a little bit more closely, I am just going to follow their standard. But you could put whatever you want there depending on what you expect the rest of your site to look like while you are designing your URLs. Now, this puts us in a position where if we go ahead and we change the password, we will get redirected to account and we will have a nice message displayed for us, which is exactly what we saw in the behavior in the beginning of the last lesson when we saw how change password was going to work. We could be done here, but I want to take this one step further. As I mentioned, I find that avoiding template namespace conflicts is generally a good thing. And given that we are in full control of all of these views, we are in a pretty good place where we could simply say, well, we don't want to use the registration namespace for any of the views that we're importing from Django here. We instead want to use our own template namespace. So we're going to go ahead and do that. And I am just going to step into the future, which I'm not showing you, and then I think I can simply reload this. And you can see that what I've done is fairly straightforward. I've simply gone ahead and specified the template name for all of these, and I'm keeping login.html, but instead of registration, it's now user. Instead of calling logged out, I've simply got a user logout, although this should redirect given all our other settings, so we are likely to never actually see that template. And now finally, I'm going to be setting the password change view template name in the actual views, which I believe we can simply load this way. I will reload that into the buffer, and then sure enough, you can see that I've changed the template name. Now, of course, I then have to go ahead and move all the templates over, but that's done with a git move command, which is fairly straightforward and will not need any demonstration on my part here. So to keep things moving right along, what we can do now is we can come back and run our test to first make sure that we've gotten everything and that everything works. And then finally, what I would normally do here is do a Docker compose up and step through the process, but given that we've already seen it in the last lesson for exactly how it's working, I will also spare you that. So moving right along, now that we have password change done, we can look at the next thing for changing passwords. When an anonymous user has forgotten their password, how do they gain their access to the account again?